I sat on the enclosed sunroom, mending the same cotton camisole I had worn for over 3 years, my needle moving back and forth under the dim yellow light. The fabric at the shoulder strap was worn so thin it was nearly transparent, and it tore a little more with every wash, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. My fingers moved through the cloth, a motion so practiced I hardly needed to look. At my age, I had spent the better part of a lifetime mending things, and I never thought it would still be this way in my old age. I heard the sound of a key turning in the lock of the front door, and then my son Kevin and my daughter-in-law Brenda came in with my grandson Leo. From the sound of it, they were in high spirits, their laughter seeping in from the living room. I quickly tucked my mending into my sewing basket, covering it with an old newspaper. "Mom, we're home," Kevin called from the living room, his voice still buzzing with the excitement of whatever party they had been to. "Oh, good, you're back," I answered, slowly pushing myself to my feet and rubbing my aching lower back. At 61 years old, my body would get stiff and sore if I sat hunched over in a chair for too long. When I walked into the living room, I saw the coffee table piled high with shopping bags. Brenda was excitedly pulling things out. "Mom, look at this," she said, holding up a blue backpack with an English logo printed on it for me to see. "This is a new backpack for Leo. It's an international brand. Even at 50% off, it was still over $150. So many of his classmates have this brand, we can't let our Leo fall behind." I nodded, silently calculating that over $150 was more than half of my grocery budget for a month. But seeing the happy look on my grandson's face, I swallowed the words before they could come out. "Mom, why are you wearing that blouse again?" Kevin suddenly frowned, looking at the faded floral shirt I had on. "Didn't I buy you a new one last time?" I looked down at myself. The blouse was perfectly fine, and it didn't matter what I wore around the house. "Oh, you have no idea how embarrassing it was today, Mom," Brenda suddenly cut in, her voice turning sharp. "The CEO's wife quietly asked me, 'Why is your housekeeper dressed so shabbily?' I told her that was my mother-in-law, and you should have seen the look on her face. She rolled her eyes dramatically. 'People are going to think we're abusing you.' I stood there, feeling a hot flush creep up my face. My fingers unconsciously twisted the hem of my shirt, right where a small, inconspicuous patch was that I had secretly sewn on last month. "Mom, you have to think about us, too," Kevin sighed, his tone full of reproach. "We're in middle management now, after all. If our own mother is dressed like that, what will people think of us?" I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but just then I heard Leo calling for his mom from his room. Brenda immediately dropped what she was holding and hurried off, leaving me and my son standing in the living room. "Kevin, it's fine. Just get some rest," he said, waving his hand dismissively before turning and walking toward his bedroom, his back radiating impatience. I stood there, frozen, until I heard the sound of their bedroom door closing. Only then did I slowly make my way back to my little room. It wasn't really a room, just a small space partitioned off from the sunroom, barely big enough for a twin bed and a small dresser. Closing the door, I took out the camisole I had been mending, but I couldn't focus. All I could see was the disgusted look in my son's eyes and the cruel expression on my daughter-in-law's face. The words "shabby" and "embarrassing" echoed in my ears. The needle pricked my finger, and a single drop of blood welled up. I stared at that little red dot and suddenly remembered something from 30 years ago. Just before my husband passed away, he held my hand and said, "Eleanor, the biggest regret of my life is you. No matter what happens, promise me you'll live for yourself, just once." Kevin was only 10 years old then. His father had late-stage liver cancer, and we had fallen deep into debt to pay for his treatment. The night he passed, it was pouring rain. I held Kevin, who had cried himself to sleep, and swore I would raise him to be successful. After that, I worked at the textile mill during the day and took on sewing jobs at night, stretching every single dollar. Kevin was a good son. He got into a good state university, landed a job at a big corporation, and married a girl from the city. I thought my hard days were finally over. I sold our old house back home to help them with the down payment on their place and moved in with them to enjoy my golden years. Enjoy them? I shook my head with a bitter smile, folded the mended camisole, and placed it in the very back of my drawer. Late that night, the house was quiet. I was just about to turn off the light and go to sleep when I faintly heard arguing from the next room. The walls were thin, and whenever they got worked up, their voices carried. What is her little Social Security check going to cover? The cost of living is so high right now, and she's living here, eating our food for free. It was Brenda's voice. Keep your voice down. Mom hasn't had it easy. Kevin's voice was much weaker. Not easy? She seems to be enjoying herself just fine. Lounging around the house all day while we work ourselves to the bone to support this family. And she just holds on to that little check of hers. So what do you want me to do? You're going to talk to her tomorrow. Tell her to hand over her direct deposit card. It's over $1,100 a month. That will at least cover the utilities. And another thing, tell her to stop wearing those rags out of the house. It's a total embarrassment. I held my breath, my fingers clutching the bedsheets. My heart was pounding in my chest, and a loud ringing filled my ears. I'll think about it. Kevin's voice grew fainter. Think about what? If you're too embarrassed to say it, I'll talk to her myself tomorrow. Then came a series of rustling sounds, and their conversation dropped to a low mumble. I couldn't make out the words anymore, but I had heard enough. I slowly lay down, switched off the lamp, and stared into the darkness. Headlights from passing cars occasionally flashed across the ceiling, casting fleeting shadows. For 30 years, ever since Kevin's father passed, I had poured all my energy and money into my son, getting him through school, helping him buy a house. I even gave them $2,000 from my meager savings every month to help with their expenses. And yet, I couldn't even bring myself to buy a new camisole. My fingers found the wallet under my pillow. Inside was my Social Security card and a faded old photograph, a picture of the three of us when Kevin was just a little boy. Things were so much better then. We were poor, but our hearts were together. Tears streamed silently down my face, soaking the pillowcase. I gently wiped them away and turned over. Live for yourself, just once. My husband's words suddenly rang in my ears, as clear as if he were right there beside me. I took a deep breath and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I clutched my wallet tightly to my chest, as if guarding my last shred of dignity. Tomorrow, I was going to the bank to report all my cards as lost. The early morning sun was filtering through the thin curtains when I was already in the kitchen, having been busy for half an hour. The oatmeal was bubbling in a pot on the stove, and the smell of bacon filled the air. I made sure to cook extra, just the way Brenda liked it. Mom, is my blue shirt ironed? Kevin walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, still in his pajamas. It's ironed. Hanging right at the front of the closet, I said, wiping my hands and sliding a fried egg onto a plate. Go wash up. Breakfast is almost ready. Brenda shuffled in, not even glancing at me. She went straight to the refrigerator and took out a carton of fresh milk. She had on a full face of makeup and was wearing a new dress, clearly ready to go out. Mom, she said suddenly, her tone deliberately casual. Kevin and I were talking. With expenses being so high, that little Social Security check of yours is just sitting there. Why don't you give me the card so I can manage everything together? My hand trembled, and I nearly spilled the bowl of oatmeal. The words I had overheard last night had become a reality, and it had happened faster than I could have imagined. I looked at Kevin, hoping he would say something. He just stared down at his oatmeal, avoiding my eyes. What? You're not willing? Brenda's voice rose. You live here without paying rent. We pay for all your food. You can't even part with that little bit of money? It's not that I'm not willing, I said, slowly putting down my spoon. It's just that I occasionally need to buy things for myself. If you need something, just tell me. Brenda waved her hand impatiently. It's not like we wouldn't get it for you. Kevin finally looked up. Mom, Brenda is just thinking about the family. You're getting older, and managing money can be a hassle. Why don't you? I looked at my son's face, so familiar yet so strange, and felt a tightness in my chest. The little boy who used to cling to my leg and promised to buy me a big house when he grew up was now helping his wife scheme for my survival money. All right, I heard myself say. I'll go get it. Back in my little room, I reached under the pillow for my wallet, and with a trembling hand, I pulled out my Social Security direct deposit card. The edges were worn. On the 25th of every month, $1,142 would be deposited onto it, my entire safety net after 30 years of work. "Mom, hurry up. I'm going to be late for work," Kevin called from outside the door. I took a deep breath, tucked the real card into another pocket, and pulled an old, expired card from my drawer. It was one the bank had deactivated when they sent me a new one last year. I had just forgotten to throw it away. "Here," I said, handing the old card to Brenda. "The pin is Kevin's birthday." She took it, a victorious smile spreading across her face. "Now, that's more like it. This is how a family should be." She casually slipped the card into her designer wallet. "I'll bring you back some fruit tonight." After they left, I collapsed onto a chair, my heart pounding like a drum. The lie I had just told left me feeling both terrified and strangely thrilled. I had never been a liar. Back when I worked at the mill, I would immediately turn in any wallet I found to security. After cleaning up the breakfast dishes, I changed my clothes and prepared to go out. If Brenda tried to use that card and found out it didn't work, she would raise hell. I had to get things settled before that happened. The bank wasn't crowded. I took a number and sat on a bench, waiting. My fingers nervously twisted the hem of my shirt, and my eyes kept darting toward the door, afraid I would run into someone I knew. Now serving number 25 at window 3. I walked over quickly. The young woman behind the counter smiled. "Ma'am, how can I help you today?" I need to report a lost bank card," I said in a low voice, "and I'd also like to ask about investment services." The woman gave me a surprised look. I suppose not many people my age came in asking about investments. She handed me a few forms. "Fill this out first and I'll look up your account." As I was filling out the form, someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Eleanor? Is that really you?" I was so startled I dropped my pen. I turned to see a familiar face, Sharon, an old colleague from the textile mill. I hadn't seen much of her since we retired. "Sharon? What? What are you doing here?" I quickly flipped the form over to hide it. "Just making a deposit," she said with a cheerful laugh, looking me up and down. "It's been years. You've gotten so thin." I forced a smile. "Just getting old, you know. It happens." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I saw what you were doing. You're reporting a lost card. Is everything okay at home?" Her question made my nose sting, and I almost burst into tears. Sharon had worked in the same section as me. She knew everything about my life, including how hard it was for me to raise Kevin on my own after his father died. "Come on," she said, patting my shoulder. "After you're done here, let's go grab a coffee next door. You look like you've got something on your mind." Half an hour later, I walked out of the bank with a new card and a brochure on financial products. Sharon linked her arm through mine as we walked to the coffee shop. "So, your son and his wife are trying to take your Social Security money?" she said, slapping the table in anger after I told her everything. "That's outrageous. That's your lifeline." "Keep it down," I said, looking around nervously. "I don't want to make things ugly. We're family, after all." "Family?" Sharon scoffed. "Does family treat you like a free maid and then complain you look shabby? Eleanor, you've always been too soft. It was the same way at the mill. Everyone took advantage of you." I looked down, stirring my coffee, watching the dark liquid swirl in the cup. "So what are you going to do now?" she asked. I don't know," I mumbled, clutching the new bank card. "For now, I'll just protect this money." Sharon's eyes suddenly lit up. "Hey, you're still great with your hands, right? The senior center is looking for an instructor for the arts and crafts class." She explained that it was every Tuesday and Thursday morning, just teaching simple sewing and knitting, and they even paid a $50 stipend for each class. "Me? Oh, no, I couldn't," I said, waving my hands frantically. "I don't know how to teach." "What do you mean you don't know how? You were the top technician at the mill. How many new workers did you train?" She pulled out her phone. "I'm signing you up. You can give it a try next Tuesday." I was still trying to refuse when my phone rang. It was Brenda. "Mom, where are you? Why is no one home?" Her voice was laced with annoyance. I'm out getting groceries," I said, glancing nervously at Sharon. "Groceries? It's taking this long? Get back here. Leo's soccer jersey is torn, and you need to mend it." After I hung up, my palms were slick with sweat. Sharon just looked at me and shook her head. You've lived this long, and you still tremble when you tell a little lie. I've never. I know. You're Eleanor, honest as the day is long, she sighed. But things are different now. You have to learn to look out for yourself. Next Tuesday, 9 o'clock in the morning, 3rd floor of the senior center. Don't forget. Walking out of the coffee shop, the sun was so bright it made me squint. I clutched a few random vegetables I'd bought at the market and headed home, my mind in a turmoil. Back at the bank, the teller told me that if I moved my money into a certificate of deposit, it couldn't be withdrawn, even with the card. It would require me to be there in person with my ID. It was a good way to protect the money. But what if there was a family emergency? I stopped at the entrance to our subdivision, took the new card out of my pocket, looked at it, and then carefully tucked it into a hidden pocket in my bra. The existence of this card had become an invisible wall between me and my son's family. When I got home, Brenda was watching TV in the living room. Seeing me come in, she didn't even look up. The jersey is in Leo's room. He needs it for tomorrow, so get it done. Okay, I answered softly and walked toward Leo's room. Oh, by the way, she called out after me. Is there a problem with that card? I tried to get cash earlier, and the ATM machine just swallowed it. My heart sank. Oh? How could that happen? Whatever, I'll go to the bank tomorrow and ask, she said with a wave of her hand. You can go back to your work. I closed the door and leaned against the wall, my legs feeling weak. Tomorrow. When she went to the bank, my lie would be exposed. What would I do then? Admit that I had reported the card lost? Leo's soccer jersey was lying on the bed with a hole worn through the knee. I mechanically took out my sewing kit, my fingers expertly threading the needle. The familiar motion of mending calmed me down, and as my needle moved in and out of the fabric, a bold plan began to form in my mind. On Tuesday morning, I woke up even earlier than usual. After putting on the oatmeal and setting some biscuits to bake, I tiptoed back to my little room and took out a cloth bundle from the very bottom of my dresser. Inside were the things I had secretly gathered last night: a few scraps of fabric, colorful silk threads, a crochet hook, and a small pair of scissors. These were things I had saved over the years, things I used for mending clothes and making small crafts, things Brenda never paid any attention to. Mom, why are you up so early today? Kevin appeared at the kitchen door, yawning. Old people don't need as much sleep, I said, my back to him, as I placed the hot biscuits on a plate. Go get ready. Breakfast is served. Brenda shuffled in wearing her pajamas and glanced at the breakfast. Oatmeal and biscuits again? Can't we have something different for a change? I'll make pancakes tomorrow, I mumbled, pushing a small dish of jam toward her. After they finished eating and left for work, I quickly cleaned up the kitchen and checked the clock. It was 20 minutes past 8. The walk would take half an hour. I changed into my most presentable jacket, put the cloth bundle into my reusable grocery bag, and added an apple for my lunch. At the door, I turned back, took my ID card from the drawer, and tucked it into my bra pocket, just in case I really had to register at the senior center today. The spring sun was warm, and the sycamore trees along the road were sprouting tender green leaves. I walked quickly, my heart beating faster with each step. The last time I had felt this nervous was 20 years ago, on the day of Kevin's SAT exam. The senior center was located in an old community center building, with colorful posters for various activities hanging by the entrance. I stood at the bottom of the steps and hesitated for a full minute before summoning the courage to walk inside. Eleanor? Over here. Sharon was waving at me from the 3rd floor landing. I was starting to think you weren't coming. Traffic was slow, I said, catching my breath. She led me into a bright classroom where a dozen or so women, all around my age, were sitting around a large table, chatting and laughing. Everyone, this is the instructor I was telling you about, Eleanor, Sharon announced loudly. She was a master technician at the textile mill. I was so embarrassed I wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Please, don't call me an instructor. I'm just here to. Eleanor, come take a look at what we've made. A friendly woman with a round face pulled me over. On the table were several lopsided crocheted coasters. I keep dropping stitches. Can you show me what I'm doing wrong? I looked down, and my professional instincts took over. I saw the problem immediately. You're starting your chain too tight. The hook needs to move like this. I picked up a crochet hook and began to demonstrate. 2 hours later, after I had taught the third person how to crochet an even scalloped edge, Sharon handed me a cup of hot tea, and you said you didn't know how to teach. Everyone's singing your praises. I held the warm cup, looking at the cheerful, friendly scene in the classroom, and a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time spread through my chest. It had been so many years since anyone had needed me or respected me like this, not for my ability to cook, clean, or watch a child, but for me as a person. When the class was ending, the class monitor, a retired elementary school teacher, came over. "Mrs. Eleanor, can you come again next Thursday? We'd like to learn cross-stitch." I glanced at Sharon's encouraging expression. "All right." "It's settled then," the monitor said happily. "As per our rules, the pay is $50 per session. I hope you don't think it's too little." On the way home, my steps were so light I felt 10 years younger. In my grocery bag was $20 the monitor had insisted I take for materials, needles, thread, and fabric, and my very first paycheck, a crisp, new $50 bill. When I passed the supermarket near my subdivision, I did something I hadn't done in years. I bought a carton of strawberries, $10. In the past, I would never have splurged like that, but today was different. Today, I had earned my own money. "Mom, where have you been?" The moment I walked in the door, Brenda was blocking the entryway, her face dark. "Look at the time. You haven't even made lunch." I went to see an old colleague," I stammered, clutching my grocery bag, my voice trembling unconsciously. "I bought some strawberries. They're very fresh." She looked suspiciously at the bag in my hand. "What old colleague is so important that you neglect your family?" "It was just Sharon from the mill." "She's been sick," I said, weaving a clumsy lie as I hurried toward the kitchen. "I'll start lunch right away. It'll be ready soon." Brenda followed me in and suddenly snatched the grocery bag from my hands. "What treasures did you buy?" She pulled out the fabric scraps and crochet hook. "Just this junk." I wanted to do some crafting," I said, watching her anxiously as she rummaged through the bag, terrified she would find the rolled-up money. "Are you sick in the head? Are we not feeding you or clothing you?" She threw the things back at me. "Hurry up and make lunch. Leo will be home from school soon, and he'll be starving." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, and quickly tied on my apron. After Brenda left, I finally dared to take the money hidden in my sleeve and carefully tuck it into my bra pocket. That afternoon, while I was mending Leo's soccer jersey, my fingers were surprisingly nimble. I not only patched the hole but also embroidered a small circle of soccer balls around it. Leo loved soccer. Looking at my own work, I couldn't help but smile. It was the first time in many years I had felt proud of something I had done for myself. That night, after everyone was asleep, I took out the $50 bill and examined it over and over under the desk lamp. The face on the bill seemed to be smiling back at me. I placed the bill inside my journal, then took out my ID and the new bank card, looking at them again and again. The next day, while Brenda was taking Leo to his tutoring class and Kevin was working late, I secretly went to the bank. The teller informed me that I could purchase a certificate of deposit with a minimum of $5,000, and the interest rate was much higher than a regular savings account. I counted my savings. After selling my old house, I had about $8,000 left, which I had kept in a savings account for emergencies. "If I put it all in a CD, when can I withdraw it?" I asked. "You can only withdraw it at maturity. The shortest term is 3 months, the teller replied. I gritted my teeth. "Then I'll buy a 3-month CD. After completing the paperwork, I let out a long sigh of relief. This money was my final safety net, and now, no one could touch it. On my way home, I stopped at a stationery store and bought a sketchbook and a set of colored pencils. I had loved to draw since I was a little girl, though I never had any formal lessons. On Thursday, I went to the senior center again. This time, I was fully prepared, bringing several simple cross-stitch patterns with me. At the end of the class, the monitor announced that they would be holding a community craft fair the following week and hoped everyone would bring something to sell. "Mrs. Eleanor, could you prepare some extra items?" the monitor asked, holding my hand. "Your craftsmanship is excellent. They'll definitely be popular. I nodded, my mind already racing with ideas of what to make. As I was leaving the classroom, Sharon mysteriously slipped an envelope into my hand. Your pay. Don't let anyone see it. For the next few days, I was like a different person. After finishing my housework, I seized every spare moment to do crafts. Crocheted coasters, embroidered tea towels, fabric key fobs. Brenda mocked me, saying I was going crazy, but I paid her no mind. My thoughts focused solely on the craft fair. On Saturday night, while the family was out at the movies, I packed up the dozen or so items I had made and hid the box under my bed. Just then, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Excuse me, is this Mrs. Eleanor?" A gentle male voice asked. "My name is Arthur. I'm a student in the craft class at the senior center. I was hoping to ask you a question about embroidery." I was stunned. I stammered, "Yes, this is Eleanor, but I'm not really. It's about the blanket stitch you taught last Thursday. I can't seem to get the tension right," he said, his tone sincere. "The class monitor said you were the best at it. Would you have a moment to give me some advice?" We arranged to meet a little earlier, before class next Tuesday. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of the bed, in a daze. Arthur, was he that silver-haired gentleman who sat quietly in the corner during class? I remembered the small cloth dolls he made were exquisite. He had even given one to the class monitor. On Sunday at noon, Brenda suddenly burst into my room. "Mom, Leo's soccer." Her words trailed off as her eyes fixed on the freshly mended undergarment on my bed, the cotton camisole with the shoulder strap that had been mended time and time again. "Oh my God!" she shrieked dramatically. "What is this piece of junk?" Before I could react, she had her phone out and had snapped a picture. "Don't." I reached out to stop her, but it was too late. "I have to show Kevin this." "His own mother is living like a beggar," she said, sneering as she typed a caption for the photo. "There's a rag picker living in my house." How does that sound? I stood there, my fingers clutching the camisole, shame and anger churning in my chest. But strangely, this time, I didn't feel the urge to cry. Instead, a cold resolve spread through my heart. That evening, I saw the familiar guilt in Kevin's eyes, but he said nothing. He just silently handed me a newly purchased gift box. "Mom, Brenda bought you some new underthings." I took the box, said a quiet thank you, and placed it at the very back of my dresser. I didn't throw away the old camisole. I folded it carefully and put it away in a drawer. It was a reminder that some things had to change. The week before the craft fair, I spent nearly all my free time making things. My fingers grew calloused, and my eyes were often sore, but my heart felt fuller than it had in years. On Tuesday morning, I arrived at the senior center an hour early. The classroom was empty. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the work tables. I took out the materials I had prepared and began to set up an embroidery hoop for demonstration. "You're here early, Mrs. Eleanor." I looked up to see a tall, elderly gentleman standing at the door. His graying hair was neatly combed, and his eyes crinkled kindly at the corners. It was Arthur. Mr. Arthur, good morning," I stammered, quickly standing up, not knowing what to do with my hands. Although we had met a few times, being alone with him made me nervous. "Please, call me Arthur," he said with a smile, walking closer. "I'm the student, you're the teacher." He held out a small cloth doll. The seam on its ear had come undone. "You see, I tried to do it the way you taught, but it's still not right." I took the doll and examined it closely. "The stitches are too loose, and you didn't hide the knot properly." I picked up a needle and thread to demonstrate. "You have to do it like this, back stitch first, then go through." He leaned in to watch, and I caught a faint scent of sandalwood, not a sharp cologne, but a quiet, calm scent, like someone who spent a lot of time around books and ink. "Ah, I see," he said, a look of understanding on his face. I was too hasty to finish it. He took the mended doll from me and said admiringly, "Your skill is truly remarkable, Mrs. Eleanor." I lowered my head, embarrassed. "It's nothing, just practice." "No, it's a gift," he said earnestly. "I used to teach at the College of Art before I retired. I've seen too many so-called artists, but true artisans like you are rare." I looked up in surprise. "You were a university professor?" I was, he smiled. Taught art history. Now that I'm retired, I'm just looking for something to do. He paused. I hear you're participating in the craft fair this weekend. I nodded. A bold idea came to me. Professor Arthur, do you think anyone will actually buy my things? Of course, his eyes lit up. If you don't mind, I could help you sketch out a few more modern designs. Handmade goods are very popular right now, and they can sell for a good price. And just like that, we started talking. Arthur, he insisted, I call him, that not only gave me many design suggestions, but also told me about online platforms dedicated to selling handmade crafts. Your skill could absolutely be turned into a business, he said sincerely. Not to get rich, but at least as something to give you purpose. The other students began to arrive, and our conversation was interrupted. But as Arthur was leaving, he slipped me a piece of paper with a few of his design sketches and their estimated prices. I stared at the numbers, my heart racing. A small embroidered wall hanging could sell for as much as $80. After class, Sharon came over with a mischievous grin. You two seem to be having a nice chat. Professor Arthur is quite the celebrity around here. His pension is over $10,000 a month. His son lives abroad. A lot of the ladies have their eye on him. Don't be ridiculous, I said, my face flushing. We were just talking about crafts. Sure you were, she said with a playful wink. But he's never been that friendly with any other female student. I packed my things with a red face, but a long-forgotten flutter stirred in my heart. How long had it been since someone had appreciated and respected me like this? Not as Kevin's mom or Brenda's mother-in-law, but as Eleanor, the person. On the way home, I stopped at a bookstore and bought a book on starting a small craft business. At the checkout counter, I hesitated for a moment, then also picked up a book on legal rights for senior citizens. I was just outside my front door when I heard Brenda's sharp voice. We have to make it clear to her, with prices this high, what good is that little bit of money she contributes? I slowed my steps, stopping just outside the door. Mom has already given us a lot. Kevin's voice sounded tired. A lot? You call $200 a month a lot? Brenda sneered. Look at my friend Sarah's mother-in-law. She doesn't just give her son her entire pension, she even uses her savings to help them with their mortgage. I clutched the books in my hand, a tightness in my chest. So, in their eyes, the $200 I gave them each month was just a drop in the bucket. Mom has it tough. Kevin was still trying. Who doesn't have it tough? Is it easy for us, raising a child and paying a mortgage? Brenda's voice suddenly took on a tearful tone. If you were capable of making big money, would I have to be scheming for your mother's pocket change? Hearing this, I took a deep breath and deliberately made a noise with my keys. The argument inside immediately stopped. Mom, you're back, Kevin called out, forcing a cheerful tone. Yes. I bought a few books, I said calmly, putting my things away in my room, pretending not to notice Brenda's red, swollen eyes. At dinner, Brenda suddenly put on a smile. Mom, I wanted to talk to you about something. Leo is starting an English tutoring program soon. It's $680 for the semester. My hand, holding my chopsticks, paused. That's so expensive. That's the going rate now, she said eagerly. We're a little short on cash. Do you think you could help out a bit more? I slowly chewed the rice in my mouth, feeling everyone's eyes on me. Kevin was looking down, pushing his food around his bowl with his chopsticks. How much? I heard myself ask. Another $200 a month. Is that okay? Brenda's eyes lit up. Just for the 6 months of the program. $400 was my entire Social Security check. I looked at Kevin, hoping he would say something, but he just avoided my gaze. All right, I said softly. I'll go to the bank tomorrow. Brenda was overjoyed and immediately put a piece of pork rib on my plate. Mom, you're the best. I knew you doted on Leo. That night I tossed and turned in bed. The cold moonlight streamed in through the window, drawing a silver line on the floor. I got up, took my bank book from deep within a drawer, and checked the balance in the moonlight. $8,000 in the CD, with a remaining balance of $2,300 in savings. Suddenly, a thought struck me. What if I put the remaining $2,000 in savings into a CD as well? That way, even if they pressured me, I wouldn't be able to give them any money. The next morning, I went to the bank again, using the excuse of grocery shopping. The teller recognized me. "Mrs. Eleanor, back again for some business?" "Yes. The $2,300 in my savings account, I want to put it all into a 3-month CD. After finishing the paperwork, I let out a long sigh of relief. Now, besides the monthly Social Security deposit, all of my savings were frozen. This made me feel both secure and guilty. Was I being too cruel to my son and grandson? On the bus home, I ran into Donna from my craft class. She was carrying a large bag filled with yarn. "Knitting a sweater for my grandson," she said with a bitter smile. "My good-for-nothing son lost $30,000 playing the stock market. Now his whole family is squeezed into my 600-square-foot-old apartment. I'm just trying to make a little something to help out." As we talked, I realized our situations were strikingly similar. We had both sold our homes to help our children, only to end up living with them and being treated like unpaid help. "The worst part is my daughter-in-law," Donna lowered her voice. "She complains that I take too long in the shower and waste water, so she sets a 10-minute timer for me." I was shocked to hear this and couldn't help but take her hand. "What do you do? What can I do?" "I put up with it," she sighed. "Isn't that how it's been for our generation?" Before she got off the bus, I summoned my courage and invited her to the craft fair on the weekend. "Doing something you enjoy might make you feel better." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I'll try." Watching her walk away, I suddenly realized how many elderly people like me were silently enduring exploitation from their own children, all for the sake of a fragile family bond. On Friday evening, Brenda suddenly asked me, "Mom, are you free tomorrow?" "Leo's school is having a family activity day." "I can't tomorrow," I said, not looking up from the cloth doll I was sewing. "I have plans." "What plans are more important than your grandson?" Her voice immediately rose. "It's an event at the senior center. It was scheduled a long time ago," I said calmly, my fingers steadily guiding the needle. Brenda was stunned, clearly not expecting me to refuse her. She left the room with a dark expression on her face. A little while later, I heard her on the phone with Kevin, complaining. When Kevin came home that night, he didn't look happy, but surprisingly, he didn't mention the matter. It wasn't until just before bedtime that he knocked on my door. "Mom, are you really going to that senior center tomorrow?" "Yes, it's the craft fair," I said, continuing to organize the items I was bringing, without looking up. "Brenda isn't happy about it." "I know," I said, stopping my work and looking directly into his eyes. "Kevin, I've lived my whole life for others. Can't I have something for myself?" He was taken aback, a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. He finally just sighed. "Well, just be safe." On Saturday morning, I left early, carrying 2 large bags of handmade goods. Donna was waiting for me at the bus stop, and she had brought a lot of her work, too. The craft fair was held in the community square, and our booth quickly attracted a crowd. Arthur came too, and he brought a few of what he called his well-to-do friends. "How much is this embroidered wall hanging?" one of the women asked, picking up one of my pieces. "40, I stammered. It was the price Arthur had suggested, but I thought it was too high. "For something this detailed?" "That's a great price," she said, paying without hesitation. "Do you have any other designs?" By noon, I had sold more than half of my items. The total revenue was astonishing $1,600. Donna sold over $800 worth of her things and was so emotional she kept wiping away tears. "Mrs. Eleanor, look," Arthur quietly pulled me aside. "A friend of mine who owns a gift shop wants to place a standing order for your cloth dolls. 20 a month at $150 each. What do you think?" "150? I gasped. "That's too much." "That's the value of handmade work," he said with a smile. "If you agree, she can pay a deposit now." I looked over at Donna, who was busy taking money from a customer, and had an idea. "Professor Arthur, could you ask if she needs more? Donna's work is excellent, too. We could do it together." He nodded approvingly. "Of course. I'll go talk to her right now." On the way home, Donna and I excitedly planned our future business. She even suggested we rent a small studio together so she wouldn't have to deal with her daughter-in-law's sour face at home. "Can we really do it? At our age?" she asked, both hopeful and afraid. "Why not?" I squeezed her hand. How many years do we have left? Shouldn't we live for ourselves? Just once? As I said it, I thought of my husband, who had been gone for so many years, and his last words. Maybe now was the time. When I got home, Brenda was waiting for me in the living room, her face a thundercloud. Had a good time? I ignored her sarcasm and went straight to my room, closing the door. I took out the money I earned today from my bra pocket and counted it, bill by bill. This was money I had earned myself. Every cent was clean. My phone vibrated. It was a text from Arthur. The gift shop owner had agreed to an order of $40 a month. The deposit had been transferred to him. They would meet on Monday to discuss the details. I replied with a single word. Okay, my fingers trembling slightly. My life, at 61, felt like it was just beginning. On Monday morning, I arrived at the coffee shop half an hour earlier than our agreed time. It wasn't busy, so I chose a corner table and ordered a pot of chamomile tea. My fingers drummed impatiently on the tabletop as I glanced towards the door every few minutes. Mrs. Eleanor, sorry to keep you waiting. Arthur's figure appeared at the entrance. He was wearing a dark blue button-down shirt that made him look particularly sharp. I just got here, I told a small lie, pouring him a cup of tea. About that order. He pulled an envelope from his briefcase. Here's the deposit, $200. The owner is very impressed with your work. She said if the quality remains consistent, she would consider increasing the order later on. I took the envelope, my fingers trembling slightly. $200. It was almost as much as the monthly support I gave Brenda. I don't know how to thank you, I said, my voice catching. If it weren't for you. It was nothing, he said with a gentle smile. By the way, I brought a sample contract. You should look it over. I put on my reading glasses and carefully read the simple agreement. Arthur patiently explained each clause, even reminding me to pay attention to the delivery deadlines and quality standards. You know so much, I said, genuinely impressed. I mentored a few startup teams before I retired, he said humbly. Mrs. Eleanor, your craft has the potential to become a small brand. A brand? The bold idea startled me. I'm just an old woman. Age isn't the issue, he said, looking at me seriously. You have the skill, I have some marketing experience, and Donna can help. Why not give it a try? The warm sunlight streamed through the coffee shop window, illuminating one side of Arthur's face. In his eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Hope for the future. I'll think about it, I said, carefully putting the contract and the deposit away. As we parted, Arthur suddenly said, See you at the senior center on Wednesday. I have a design sketch I'd like your opinion on. Okay, I nodded, a warmth spreading through my chest. On the way home, I stopped at the bank and deposited the $200 into my secret account. Looking at the balance on the ATM screen, a wonderful sense of accomplishment washed over me. At 61, I was starting my own business. The moment I stepped through the front door, I heard Brenda's loud voice on the phone in the living room. You wouldn't believe it. Old ladies are running wild these days, out all the time, neglecting their families. Seeing me, she deliberately raised her voice. Not like your mother-in-law, completely devoted to her grandson. I pretended not to hear and walked straight to the kitchen. The refrigerator was empty, and the sink was piled high with dirty breakfast dishes. In the past, I would have cleaned up immediately. But now, I poured myself a glass of water, went back to my little room, and closed the door. I pulled my toolbox from under the bed and started working on the first batch of orders. Arthur was right. If I was going to do this, I had to ensure the quality was perfect. The whirring of the sewing machine soon drowned out my unhappiness. As the needle moved in and out of the fabric, a bold plan took shape in my mind. If the business became stable, maybe I could really move out. Mom, Kevin's voice suddenly came from outside the door. What are you doing? That sewing machine is so loud. Leo is trying to do his homework. I only then realized it was already dark. I quickly put away my tools and opened the door. I'm sorry. I didn't notice the time. He frowned, looking at the piles of fabric and thread in my room. What have you been so busy with lately? You're always so secretive. Just some crafts, I said, avoiding his gaze. You must be hungry. I'll go make dinner right now. The atmosphere at the dinner table was tense. Brenda wore a cold expression, and it wasn't until Kevin went to take a shower that she threw her phone down in front of me. "Explain this." On the screen was a photo of me and Donna at the craft fair. Someone had posted it on Facebook. "Were you following me?" I asked, shocked. "Following you?" she scoffed. "Sharon posted it, praising your amazing skill and finding purpose in old age." What a load of crap. I silently cleared the dishes, my heart racing. At this point, there was no use in hiding it anymore. "Starting tomorrow, you are forbidden from going to that so-called senior center," Brenda ordered. "It's a disgrace." "Why is it a disgrace?" I put down the dishes, my voice surprisingly calm. "I'm doing something I enjoy." "What's wrong with that?" She clearly didn't expect me to talk back and was speechless for a moment before her anger erupted. "Because you eat our food and live in our house. Kevin, your mother is rebelling." The sound of the shower stopped, and Kevin walked out, drying his hair. "What's wrong?" "Look at your mother," Brenda shrieked. "She's out all the time, and now she dares to talk back to me." Kevin looked at me, then at her, and finally sighed. "Mom, Brenda is just looking out for you. There are a lot of scammers out there, and at your age." "I'm 61, not senile." I suddenly raised my voice, startling even myself. "Kevin, I've lived my whole life for you. Can't I have a hobby of my own?" "A hobby?" Brenda sneered. "At your age, what are you? Some kind of artist? If you have so much free time, you should be helping out more around the house." The argument ended with me retreating to my room. But this time, I didn't cry. I sat down at my sewing machine and pressed the pedal even harder. The fabric flew under the needle as if I was trying to sew away all my frustrations. Late that night, my phone vibrated. It was a design sketch from Arthur, along with a message, "See you Wednesday." I hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Okay." Just one simple word, but it felt like a promise. The next morning, I got up and made breakfast as usual. Brenda came out with dark circles under her eyes. Seeing me, she seemed surprised that I was still preparing their meals. Her tone softened slightly. "I was out of line yesterday, but I really am just worried about you these days." "I'm going out today," I interrupted her, my voice calm but firm. "I'll be back by 4 o'clock in the afternoon to make dinner." Her face immediately changed. "So you're determined to defy me, is that it? Fine. If you have the guts, don't come back to this house." "Brenda!" Kevin rushed out of the bedroom. "What are you saying? Am I wrong?" Her voice was shrill. "Look at your mother. Ever since she started going to that senior center, she's a different person. Someone must have brainwashed her." I put down the spatula and untied my apron. "Kevin, I'm going for a walk. The food is on the stove." "Mom?" he called after me, but I didn't turn back. Outside the subdivision, I took a deep breath. The sun was shining, and a gentle breeze was blowing. I took out my phone and dialed the number for a real estate agent I had seen on a flyer yesterday. "Hello, I'm looking for a small apartment suitable for a senior citizen, preferably close to the senior center." The process of looking at apartments was smoother than I expected. The agent showed me a 1-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment. It was old but clean, and it was only a 10-minute walk to the senior center. "The rent is $1,280 a month," the agent said. "First and last month's rent, plus a security deposit." I calculated my savings. The money in the CDs was untouchable for now, but the income from my craft orders plus my Social Security could cover it. More importantly, it was far enough from my son's house, but not too far in case they needed me. "I'll think about it," I told the agent, taking down her contact information. At noon, I had a bowl of beef noodle soup at a small diner on the street. It was the first time in many years I had eaten out alone, and surprisingly, it felt very liberating. After lunch, I went to a law office to inquire about property protection for senior citizens. "Your situation is very common," the young female lawyer said, pushing up her glasses. "Legally, your Social Security and savings belong to you and you alone. Your children have no right to interfere." She helped me draft a simple declaration, clarifying the ownership of my assets and advised that if I moved out, I should sign a formal lease agreement to protect my rights. Many elderly people are tricked by their children into selling their homes, Only to end up homeless, she said sympathetically. It's not easy for you to have this awakening. Leaving the law office, I sat on a park bench for a long time. The dappled shadows of the sycamore trees danced on the ground, and a few children played in the distance. At 61, my life was just beginning to be my own. Before heading home, I went to the supermarket and bought the pork ribs Kevin loved and the seafood Brenda preferred. No matter what, now was not the time to burn all my bridges. Kevin opened the door. His expression was complex. "Mom, where have you been?" "Brenda has been worried sick." "Just went for a walk," I said, carrying the groceries into the kitchen. "I'll make your favorites tonight." The atmosphere at dinner was tense. Only Leo, with his innocent charm, praised his grandma's cooking. Brenda kept shooting me suspicious glances, but didn't bring up the senior center again. That night, after everyone was asleep, I quietly opened my laptop and searched for independent living guides for seniors. As I read through the articles, my resolve to move out grew stronger. I was so engrossed that I didn't hear the footsteps until Kevin was at the door. "Mom, you're still awake?" he asked, his eyes on my laptop screen. I quickly closed the laptop, just heading to bed. He came in and sat on the edge of my bed. "Mom," he said suddenly, "are you thinking of moving out?" My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know how to answer. "I saw your search history." His voice was low. "Why? Are we not treating you well?" Faced with my son's direct question, my nose stung, but I held back the tears. "Kevin, I'm getting older. I just want a little space of my own." "Did Brenda say something?" He clenched his fists. "I know she can be difficult sometimes, but she doesn't mean any harm. It's not about anyone." I took a deep breath. "I just want to try living on my own." He was silent for a long time and finally sighed. "If that's what you want, but promise me you won't do anything reckless. Renting is expensive, and your social security." "I have a plan," I said softly, not mentioning the craft orders. After that night, the atmosphere in the house shifted subtly. Brenda no longer openly antagonized me, but the hostility in her eyes grew stronger. Kevin was always hesitant, as if he wanted to say something, and he occasionally helped with chores, which was a first. On Wednesday, I went to the senior center as planned. Arthur was already waiting in the classroom. He visibly relaxed when he saw me. "I was worried you wouldn't come." "Why wouldn't I?" I forced a smile and showed him the samples I had made. He examined them carefully and was full of praise. "They're even better than I imagined. Mrs. Eleanor, you're a natural-born artisan." After class, he invited me for a walk in a nearby park. It was late spring, and the park was beautiful. We strolled along the lake, talking about crafts, about life, and even about our families. My son settled in the United States. "I'm lucky if I see him once a year," he said with a sad smile. "After my wife passed, it's just been me in that big empty house. I might be living alone soon too," I found myself saying, telling him about my plan to move out. His eyes lit up. "Really? That's wonderful. I mean, for you, it's a new beginning." We agreed to go see a small apartment that a friend of his had vacant on the weekend. The rent was supposed to be very reasonable. As we were parting, he hesitated for a moment and then said suddenly, "Mrs. Eleanor, if you need any help, please don't hesitate to call me." I nodded, my heart feeling warm. On the way home, my phone rang. It was Donna. "Eleanor? Something terrible has happened." Her voice was frantic. "My son saw my crafts and said I was neglecting my duties. He threw everything away." My heart tightened. "Are you okay?" "I moved out," she sobbed. "I'm staying at my daughter's place for now, but my son-in-law is not happy about it." After hanging up, I stood on the sidewalk in a daze. Donna's experience was like a bucket of cold water poured over me. If Kevin and Brenda found out I was not only doing crafts, but also planning to move out, how would they react? When I got home, I was greeted by darkness. A note was taped to the dining table. "Took the kid to my mother's. You're on your own for dinner, Brenda." The refrigerator was completely empty except for half a cold, hard biscuit. I was silently chewing on the biscuit when I heard a key in the lock. "Mom," Kevin stood at the door, looking exhausted. "Have you eaten?" "Yes," I said, hiding the rest of the biscuit. "Where's Brenda?" "She took Leo to her mother's for a few days. He hesitated. "Mom, we need to talk." He sat down, looking directly into my eyes. "Are you really planning to move out?" I hadn't expected him to be so direct and was at a loss for words. "I checked your browser history." His voice was low. "And Sharon told me you were selling your crafts at the fair." My heart sank. My fingers unconsciously twisted the hem of my shirt. I wasn't trying to hide it from you," I said with difficulty. "I was just afraid you would disapprove." He gave a bitter laugh. "Mom, I'm not worried about you. I'm worried for you. But if you really want to, I can help you find a place." I stared at him in disbelief. "I'll talk to Brenda," he sighed. "I know she's not been fair to you. It's just, I'm stuck in the middle." My son's eyes reddened, and in that moment, I saw the little boy who used to cry in my arms. I reached out and touched his face, feeling a warm tear. "Kevin." I choked, unable to speak. "Mom, just give me some time." He took my hand. "I'll handle it. But promise me you won't do anything reckless, okay?" That night, I couldn't sleep. Kevin's change of heart made me feel both relieved and uneasy. Was he genuinely supportive, or was this another ploy? And Brenda's sudden trip to her mother's, was she truly angry, or was she plotting something? At 3 o'clock in the morning, I quietly got out of bed and dialed Arthur's number. I knew it was an inappropriate time, but I needed an outsider's perspective. "Hello?" To my surprise, he answered quickly, his voice clear. "It's me, Eleanor," I whispered. "I'm so sorry to call this late." "It's all right." I was up reading. His tone was gentle. "What happened?" I briefly told him about the situation at home, including Kevin's unexpected reaction. "What do you think?" he asked. "I don't know if I can trust him," my voice trembled. "What if he's just trying to trick me?" "Mrs. Eleanor," he said softly, "there's nothing wrong with trusting your child, but there's also nothing wrong with protecting yourself." His voice was like a warm current, calming me down. "So what should I do?" "Prepare for both outcomes," he advised. "On one hand, accept your son's help. On the other hand, our plans for the orders and finding you a place continue as scheduled. That way, no matter what happens, you'll have a safety net." After hanging up, I let out a long sigh of relief. Outside, the eastern sky was beginning to glow. A new day was about to begin, and I was ready to face whatever came my way. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I quietly got out of bed and pulled an old suitcase from under my bed. Inside were a few changes of clothes and some daily necessities I had been secretly packing over the past few days while Brenda was away. My fingers brushed against the mended old camisole. I hesitated for a moment, then placed it in the suitcase. It was a witness, a reminder of all the years I had swallowed my pride. My phone screen lit up. It was a message from Arthur. "Found a suitable rental. Can view anytime." I replied, 10 o'clock this morning, at the senior center, and then quickly deleted the message history. As the sky brightened, I began to prepare breakfast as usual, but my mind was already on the upcoming viewing. 3 days ago, I had told Kevin I was going to visit an old colleague and would be gone for the day. To my surprise, he readily agreed, even offering to drive me to the bus station. "Mom, be safe," he said, carrying my bag, his eyes filled with a complex emotion. "Call me if you need anything." I nodded, not daring to tell him that my bag contained all my important documents and my bank book. Brenda and Leo had been at her mother's for a week, and the house had a strange, unsettling quietness. "Text me when you get there," Kevin said as I boarded the bus. I only let out a long sigh of relief after the bus started moving. My first stop was the law office. I needed to have the declaration I had prepared officially notarized. "Mrs. Eleanor, are you sure you want to do this?" the young lawyer asked, pushing up her glasses. "This document means your children will not be able to access any of your assets." "I'm sure," I said, signing my name, my fingers trembling slightly. This was my last resort. Leaving the law office, I headed straight for the senior center. Arthur was already waiting at the entrance. He looked relieved to see me. "I was afraid you had changed your mind." "I won't," I forced a smile. "Should we see the apartment first, or meet with Donna?" "Let's see the apartment. Donna is already waiting there." We took a cab to a quiet neighborhood with lots of greenery. Elderly people were enjoying the sun in the courtyard. Donna was standing in front of a pale yellow building, waving at us. "Eleanor," she said, jogging over and taking my hand. "You're finally here. This place is great. The hospital is just 2 stops away." The apartment was on the 3rd floor, a 1-bedroom with a living room, about 400 square feet. It was old but had good lighting. The kitchen was small, but it was enough for me. What I loved most was the balcony, which was big enough for a small table and my sewing machine. The rent is $1,260 a month, with first and last month's rent plus a security deposit, the landlady, a kind middle-aged woman, said. "Since you're seniors, I can give you the lowest residential rate for utilities." I exchanged a look with Donna. She had moved out of her daughter's place last week and was temporarily staying in a dorm provided by the senior center. "If we split it, it's $630 each," she whispered. "What do you think?" I looked around, picturing myself living here. Waking up to the morning sun, no need to rush to make breakfast for a large family. Spending my days doing crafts, reading, and maybe even taking evening walks with Arthur. "It's very nice," I nodded, turning to the landlady. "Can we sign the lease today?" The process was smoother than I expected. At noon, the 3 of us had a simple celebratory lunch at a diner near the neighborhood. Donna excitedly planned how we would decorate our new home, while Arthur helped me analyze the budget for our craft orders. "With the current order volume, your net monthly income should be around $3,000, he said, scribbling numbers in a notebook. "Plus your Social Security, that's more than enough to live on." "Really?" I couldn't believe my ears. I could survive on my own. Not just survive, but live well. Arthur smiled and handed me a piece of paper. "This is the budget I worked out." Looking at the numbers, my nose suddenly stung. I had lived for 61 years, and this was the first time someone had helped me plan a life that was my own. In the afternoon, we went to see another place. Donna had found a small commercial space near the senior center. The rent was $4,000 a month, and the back could be partitioned off as a living space. "This is perfect for a workshop," Arthur said, pointing to the spacious front room. "It can fit 3 or 4 sewing machines. The back is a bit cramped for living, but it's convenient for taking orders." I bit my lip, weighing the pros and cons. The commercial space was much more expensive, but if the business did well, the income would be higher. The apartment was quiet and comfortable, but it wasn't convenient for receiving and delivering orders. "Let me think about it," I told Donna. On the bus back to the city, I leaned wearily against the window, my mind filled with numbers and choices. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from Kevin. "Mom, when are you coming back?" "Brenda and Leo are coming home tomorrow." My heart tightened. "I'll be back tonight." It was already dark when I dragged my tired body home. I found Kevin in the kitchen, cooking noodles. "Mom, have you eaten?" he asked, a bit embarrassed. "I'm not much of a cook." "Let me," I said, putting down my bag and taking the spatula. "Brenda is coming back tomorrow," he said, leaning against the doorframe, hesitating. "Did you have a good time these past few days?" I stirred the vegetables in the pot, not answering directly. "I saw a few old colleagues. It was nice." "That's good," he paused. "After Brenda gets back, will you still go out?" The spatula scraped against the iron pot with a harsh sound. I turned off the stove and faced my son. "Kevin, what are you really trying to say?" He looked down. "Nothing. It's just, Mom, you've changed a lot lately." I didn't answer, just served the noodles into bowls. We ate the simple dinner in silence and then went to our separate rooms. Locking the door, I immediately checked the suitcase under my bed. It was still there, but it seemed to have been moved. My heart raced as I quickly opened it. The documents and my bank book were there, but the envelope with the cash was noticeably thinner. I counted it. $200 were missing. I collapsed onto the bed, my hands and feet cold. Who took it? Kevin, or had Brenda come back? More importantly, had they discovered my plan? My phone rang again. It was Arthur. "Have you decided?" I chewed on my fingernails, hesitating to reply. If I moved out, it meant a complete break with my son. If I didn't, I would live under Brenda's shadow forever. Finally, I typed out a line. "I've decided to rent the commercial space. I'll sign the contract tomorrow." After sending the message, I felt as if a great weight had been lifted from my shoulders. No matter how difficult it was, I had to take this step. Looking at the moonlight outside the window, I remembered my husband's last words: live for yourself, just once. The next morning, as soon as Kevin left for work, I took a cab to the senior center. Arthur already had the contract ready. Donna grabbed my hand excitedly. "This is great. We're finally going to be neighbors." After signing the papers and paying the deposit, I let out a long sigh of relief. I'll need a few days to move in. I still have some things to take care of at home. "Do you need help?" Arthur asked with concern. I shook my head. This was a battle I had to fight on my own. On the way home, I stopped at the bank and transferred the last of my $2,000 in savings to the new card. Now, besides the $8,000 in the CD, all my money was in this account that only I knew about. I opened the door to my house and froze. Brenda and Leo were back. The living room was piled high with their luggage. Well, the old lady decided to come back," Brenda said with a sneer. "Had a good time?" I forced a smile. "Leo, you've grown taller. Don't change the subject." She suddenly raised her voice. "Kevin said you were visiting old colleagues. What colleagues are so important that you're gone for 3 days?" "Just a few friends from the mill," I said, trying to get to my room and avoid a confrontation. Brenda grabbed my bag. "Let's see what treasures you brought back." The bag was ripped open, and its contents scattered on the floor. The fabric samples I had brought for Donna, the lease agreement for the commercial space, and the paper with the budget written on it. The air seemed to freeze. Brenda picked up the contract, her eyes widening. "Commercial lease. Eleanor, what have you been doing behind our backs?" Leo started to cry, frightened by her screaming, but I couldn't comfort him. Brenda, like a furious lioness, waved the paper in the air. "Kevin, look what your mother has been up to." Kevin rushed out of the bedroom, his face pale. "Mom, what is this?" At this point, there was no use in hiding it. I took a deep breath. "I'm planning to move out. Donna and I are renting a commercial space to start a craft business." "Are you crazy?" Brenda shrieked. "An old woman in her 60s starting a business? Aren't you afraid of being a laughingstock?" "I'm earning a living with my own hands. What's there to laugh at?" My voice was quiet but firm. "Kevin, are you going to do something about your mother?" Brenda shoved her husband. "She's trying to run off with our money." Kevin looked at me, his eyes full of hurt. "Mom, are you really leaving us?" For a moment, I almost gave in. But then I remembered the stolen money, the rummaged suitcase, and I stood up straighter. "Kevin, I'm not leaving you. I just want to have my own life." "What own life?" Brenda interrupted. "You're just being selfish. You don't want to help us. You don't want to look after your grandson." "Enough." I suddenly raised my voice, stunning them both. "Brenda, how much money have I given you over the years? I've worked like a horse, serving the 3 of you, not even buying myself a new piece of clothing. Now, I just want to live for myself for a few years. What's wrong with that?" Brenda was shocked by my sudden outburst. Then her anger grew even more intense. "So, you're finally showing your true colors. Get out now, and don't you dare take a single cent from this house." "Brenda," Kevin tried to reason with her, but she had already stormed into my room and started ransacking it. "Stop it!" I ran after her, just in time to see her pull the new bank card from under my pillow. "What's this?" she said, waving the card triumphantly. "A secret stash. Give it to me." I reached for it, but she dodged me. "Kevin, check how much is in here," she ordered. "Your mother must have hidden a lot of money." Kevin hesitated, then took the card. "Mom, what's the PIN?" I looked at him, my heart breaking. This was the son I had worked so hard to raise, standing with his wife, scheming for my retirement money. "Kevin," my voice trembled, "give me back the card." "Mom, if you're really moving out, the money should be with me for safekeeping," he said, avoiding my eyes. "In case you get scammed." My last hope was shattered. I slowly took out my phone from my pocket and pressed play. The recording of my conversation with the lawyer filled the room. "This document means your children will not be able to access any of your assets." "I've had my assets legally notarized," I said calmly. "There's only $200 on that card. If you want it, take it. But you won't be able to touch the rest of my money." Brenda's face went from red to white, then to a sickly green. You You schemed against us. I was just protecting myself, I said, taking back the card. Now, please leave my room. That night, the house was eerily silent. Brenda and Kevin were arguing fiercely behind their closed bedroom door. I sat on my bed, packing my last few belongings. There wasn't much to pack. Besides a few clothes and my old sewing machine, there was very little in this house that was mine. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I quietly pushed my suitcase toward the front door. In the moonlight, I saw Kevin sitting on the living room sofa. It startled me. "Mom," his voice was hoarse. "Are you really going?" I stopped but didn't turn around. "Kevin, I love you, but I'm a person too. I need to be treated like one." "I know, Brenda. She went too far," he choked. "But I can't. Leo is still so young." "I understand." I took a deep breath. "When you figure things out, you're always welcome to come and see me." I pushed open the door. The early summer night breeze blew against my face. I stood on the steps and looked back one last time at the house I had poured my entire life into. Tears blurred my vision, but my steps were firm. A taxi drove through the night, towards a new life. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Arthur. "Do you need me to pick you up?" I replied, "No, thanks. See you tomorrow," and then turned off my phone. Watching the city lights recede outside the window, I knew that at 61, my life was finally, truly beginning. The commercial space was even more rundown than I had imagined. The front room was empty, with peeling paint on the walls. The back room was only 100 square feet, barely enough for a twin bed and a small table. But sunlight streamed through the glass door, drawing a bright square on the floor. "We'll make do for now and fix it up slowly," Donna said, helping me with my suitcase. "The front is spacious, good for working." I nodded, placing my sewing machine in the brightest spot. This old machine had been with me for 30 years. The paint was chipping, but it still ran smoothly. "Arthur said he's bringing a few students over this afternoon to help us clean," Donna said, handing me a cup of hot tea. "You should rest for a bit." I sat on a cardboard box, looking around at what would be my new home. Strangely, I didn't feel the fear or regret I had anticipated. Instead, there was a sense of profound relief. "Donna, do you regret it?" I asked suddenly. "Leaving your children's home?" Her hands, busy making the bed, paused. "I regret not leaving sooner," she said, turning around, her eyes glistening with tears. "My daughter called yesterday. She said I was an embarrassment, that I was making her lose face with her in-laws." I took her rough hand, speechless. Our generation had given everything for our children, only to not even receive basic respect in return. That afternoon, Arthur arrived as promised with 3 students from the senior center. Everyone pitched in, cleaning, washing the windows. A retired electrician even checked the wiring for us. "Mrs. Eleanor, how about this for a curtain?" a woman named Clara asked, holding up a piece of light blue floral fabric. "It's beautiful, but it's too nice to waste," I said, feeling the soft material. "It's just scrap from my daughter's clothing factory," she said cheerfully. "I'll bring you more tomorrow for your crafts." By evening, our little shop was transformed. The front room had 2 borrowed long tables covered with clean checkered tablecloths. The small bed in the back was neatly made, and there was even a landscape painting hanging on the wall. Everyone has worked so hard. "Let me treat you all to dinner," I said, taking out my wallet. "No, no," they all said, waving their hands. "Wait until your business takes off." After they left, Donna and I sat in the newly tidied front room, sipping tea. The sunlight filtered through the new blue curtains, casting soft shadows on the floor. "Eleanor, we actually did it," Donna said softly, her voice filled with disbelief. I nodded, a strange emotion stirring in my chest. At 61, I finally had a space that was entirely my own. I didn't have to answer to anyone or sacrifice for anyone. That night, I slept in a strange little bed, but I slept more soundly than I had in years. I woke up in the middle of the night. Moonlight streamed through a gap in the curtains, drawing a silver line on the floor. I reached out and touched the beam of light, as if I could feel the shape of freedom. The next morning, I was awakened by a knock on the door. I opened it to see Arthur standing in the morning light, holding soy milk and steamed buns. I figured you wouldn't have breakfast ready, he said with a smile, handing me the bag. Did you sleep well? Very well, I said, taking the breakfast, suddenly aware that I was still in my pajamas and my hair was a mess. I felt a flush of embarrassment. He seemed to notice my discomfort. I'm heading to the senior center for class. I'll check back at noon to see if you need anything. The following days were busy and fulfilling. Donna and I divided the work. She was responsible for sewing simple items like coasters and aprons, while I focused on detailed embroidery and custom-made cloth dolls. Arthur came by every day, sometimes with materials, sometimes with food, but mostly to help us with customers and organize orders. A week later, our Sunset Glow handicrafts officially opened for business. On opening day, our classmates from the senior center all came to support us. The small shop was packed. Mrs. Eleanor, this doll is exquisite, a woman said, holding a Year of the Tiger doll I had just finished. How much is it? $180? I said, a bit nervously. That's all? She said in surprise. Similar handmade items online sell for at least $300. And just like that, our first batch of products sold out quickly. That evening, when we were counting the money, Donna and I were thrilled to find that after deducting costs, we had each made a net profit of $1,200. We can actually make money, Donna said, her hands trembling as she touched the stack of bills. Not only can we make money, but we can do even better, I said, patting her shoulder. My mind was already planning the next steps, buying better sewing machines, designing more styles, even opening an online store. But our good fortune didn't last. On the 10th day after we opened, I was working on a batch of orders when the doorbell rang sharply. I looked up to see Brenda standing at the door, her face dark and menacing. "Mom," she said coldly, "you seem to be doing quite well for yourself." I put down my needle and thread, my heart racing. "Brenda, how did you find this place?" "I followed that old man, Arthur," she said, her eyes scanning the shop, lingering on each item. "Does Kevin know you're making this much money?" Donna stood up nervously. "What? What do you want?" "This doesn't concern you," Brenda snapped, turning back to me. "Mom, Leo is sick. He has a high fever and keeps asking for his grandma." "What?" I immediately stood up. "Is it serious? Have you taken him to the hospital?" "We did. The doctor said it might be pneumonia." Her voice suddenly took on a tearful tone. "Kevin can't get time off work, and I can't manage on my own." "Mom, I know I was wrong before, but the child misses you." I stood there, torn between reason and emotion. I had raised Leo since he was a baby. How could I not go to him when he was sick? But I knew what going back would mean. "I'll go see him," I said. In the end, family ties won. "Donna, can you watch the shop?" A flash of triumph crossed Brenda's eyes as she quickly helped me pack my things. As I was leaving, on a strange impulse, I took the money pouch I wore around my waist. Inside was the past 2 days' earnings and my bank card. Sure enough, as soon as we got in the car, Brenda's attitude changed. "Mom, the shop is doing well, huh? How much have you made?" "It's just starting out, not much," I said warily. "Who's that old man Arthur?" she asked, glancing at me sideways. "Kevin said he's always at your shop. What's your relationship with him?" "Just a friend. He helps us with business contacts," I answered, trying to remain calm. When we arrived at the house, I was shocked to find Leo happily watching TV in the living room, looking perfectly healthy. "Leo, are you not feeling well?" I knelt down and touched his forehead. It was normal. "No," the child said innocently. "Mommy said I don't have to go to preschool today so I can play with Grandma." I shot to my feet, furious. "Brenda, you lied to me. Would you have come back if I didn't?" She sneered. "Kevin, your mother is back." Kevin walked out of the bedroom, his expression complex. "Mom, so the shop is real." I finally understood. Their goal wasn't Leo's health. It was that they had discovered I was actually making money and wanted to lure me back to continue exploiting me. "Kevin, take me back to the shop," I said, turning to leave. "Mom," he blocked my way. "Now that you're back, just stay. Leo misses you, and we need you." "Need me for what?" I laughed coldly. "For my money? Or for a free maid?" "How can you say that?" Brenda shrieked. Shouldn't family help each other? You have a skill. You can work from home. What's wrong with using the money you earn to help with family expenses? Brenda, Kevin cut her off, then turned to me. Mom, don't listen to her. I just want you to come home. You can close the shop. It's too much work for you. Looking at my son's feigned concern, my heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. This was the son I had raised, conspiring with his wife to deceive me and scheme for my hard-earned money. Move. My voice was ice cold. I'm going back. No way. Brenda snatched my bag. Once you're in this door, you're not leaving. You think we don't know? You transferred all the money, even the money from selling Dad's house, and didn't give us any. That was my money, my house, I said, trying to get my bag back, but she deftly dodged me. Kevin, look at your mother, brainwashed by outsiders, disowning her own family. She screamed as she rummaged through my bag. Where's the bank card? What's the PIN? Enough, I finally exploded. Give me back my bag. In the chaos, Leo started crying. Kevin stood to the side, looking helpless as we struggled. Brenda finally pulled the money pouch from my bag and took out the cash and the bank card. That's it? She said, counting the money, her face full of disappointment. A little over $200. I thought your shop was doing so well. Brenda! Kevin finally stepped in. Give Mom back her money. Give it back? She owes us this, she shouted hysterically. All these years, living in our house, eating our food, shouldn't she compensate us? I stood there, looking at the woman I once considered family, and suddenly felt the absurdity of it all. This was the result of years of swallowing my pride. Take it, I said calmly. Consider this money the price of severing our ties. I turned and walked toward the door. This time, Kevin didn't stop me. But just as I opened the door, Leo ran over and hugged my leg. Grandma, don't go! The child's tears broke through my last line of defense. Leo, be a good boy. I knelt down and hugged him, sobbing. Mom. Kevin's voice was choked with emotion. Don't go, I promise. Kevin. I dried my tears and stood up, looking directly into his eyes. I love you, and I love Leo. But I'm a person too. I need to be respected, to be treated like a human being. Gently prying Leo's hands off, I stroked his head one last time. Be good. Grandma will come to visit you often. Walking out of the subdivision, I was shaking so badly I could barely stand. A taxi slowly drove by, and I mechanically hailed it. Where to? The driver asked. I opened my mouth, then suddenly realized I had nowhere to go. My money pouch had been taken, my phone and keys were in my bag. I was penniless. The senior center, I said hoarsely, hoping Arthur was still there. When the car arrived at the senior center, I embarrassedly explained my situation to the driver and asked him to wait while I went inside to borrow money. Just as I got out of the car, I saw Arthur walking out of the main entrance. Mrs. Eleanor? He asked, surprised to see my disheveled state. What happened? Seeing him, the tension I had been holding in finally broke, and tears streamed down my face. He immediately understood, paid the driver, and helped me into his office. After a cup of hot tea, I managed to tell him what had happened. Arthur listened, his expression grim. We should call the police. This is robbery. No, it's fine, I shook my head. It is my son's house, after all. That's precisely why you need to draw a clear line, he said seriously. Otherwise, they will only get worse. In the end, at his insistence, we went to the police station. After giving my statement, the police said they would send someone to retrieve my belongings, but advised me not to go home for the time being. I'll take you to Donna's place, Arthur said. Tomorrow, I'll go with you to change the locks and get a new bank card. In his car, a wave of exhaustion washed over me, and I leaned against the window, dozing off. Mrs. Eleanor, we're here. His soft voice woke me after what felt like a long time. I opened my eyes to find the car parked in front of an unfamiliar apartment building. This is my place, he said, a little embarrassed. Donna went to her daughter's, so the shop is empty. You can stay here for one night and tomorrow. I was too tired to think about whether it was appropriate. I just followed him upstairs. His home was neat and cozy. The bookshelves were filled with art books, and several ink wash paintings hung on the walls. "I'll sleep in the study. You can take the bedroom," he said, handing me a clean set of pajamas and a towel. "The bathroom is on the left." The hot water washed away some of my exhaustion, but the wound in my heart still ached. I put on his pajamas. They were so large they felt like a sack, the sleeves hanging down to my fingertips, smelling faintly of laundry detergent. "Have some milk. It'll help you sleep." He knocked gently on the door, holding a glass of warm milk. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you today," I said, taking the glass, tears welling up in my eyes again. I'm so useless." "No, you're very brave," he said, sitting in the chair opposite me. "It takes courage to leave. It takes even more courage to persevere." That night, I slept in a strange man's bed, but I slept more soundly than I ever had. In my dreams, there were no screams from Brenda, no weakness from Kevin, only a calm lake reflecting a blue sky and white clouds. The next morning, I was awakened by the smell of frying eggs from the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the light-colored curtains, casting warm patches on the floor. "You're awake," Arthur said, standing at the stove wearing an apron. "Egg sandwich. Is that okay?" "You've gone to too much trouble," I said, embarrassedly tidying my hair, suddenly realizing I was still in his pajamas. He seemed to notice my awkwardness. "There's a new toothbrush and towel in the bathroom. I'm going out to get some soy milk. I'll be back in 10 minutes. After he left, I let out a sigh of relief, quickly washed up, and changed into my clothes from yesterday, which had been washed and dried. On the dining table were golden yellow fried eggs and perfectly toasted bread, along with today's newspaper. As I idly flipped through the paper, an announcement for an essay contest caught my eye. My retirement life. The requirement was to truthfully reflect the lives of contemporary senior citizens. A bold idea suddenly came to me. I found a pen and paper and began to quickly write down the experiences of the past few months. How I sold my old house to help my son buy his, how I was scorned by my daughter-in-law, how I discovered the joy of crafting, and how I summoned the courage to move out. I was halfway through when Arthur returned, holding not just soy milk but also my bag. "The police got it back for you. Check if anything is missing." The cash and the bank card were gone, as expected, but my phone and keys were still there. I shook my head with a bitter smile and continued writing. "What are you writing?" he asked curiously. I showed him the contest announcement. "I want to write down my story. Maybe it can help others in similar situations." He carefully read what I had already written, his eyes lighting up. "This is very good, truly moving." He hesitated for a moment. "But are you sure you want to publish it? It might escalate the conflict with your family." "It's already escalated," I said with a wry smile, finishing the last paragraph. "If my experience can help just one other person like me, it's worth it." After mailing the manuscript, we went to the bank to report the card as lost and get a new one. Then we changed the locks on the shop. When Donna heard what had happened, she was furious. "How dare they? Eleanor, we have to make them eat their words." The following days, we worked even harder at the handicraft shop. Arthur helped us open an online store, and the orders gradually increased. My new line of Zodiac-themed cloth dolls was particularly popular, and we even received a small bulk order for 50 dolls from a local preschool. 2 weeks later, on a morning when I was busy with the preschool order, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Excuse me, is this Mrs. Eleanor?" a young woman asked. "I'm an editor at Silver Threads magazine. Your essay won first prize. We'd like to do an interview with you." I was stunned. I never expected the article I wrote on a whim would attract such attention. What was even more unexpected was that the same afternoon, a television station called, inviting me to be a guest on a talk show about issues facing senior citizens. "Mrs. Eleanor, you're going to be a celebrity," Donna said excitedly. "Let's see if Brenda dares to bully you now." Arthur, however, was a bit worried. Media exposure might bring unnecessary trouble. "Are you ready for that?" I bit my lip, thinking for a long time. "I want to tell the truth. Too many elderly people are like me, silently enduring exploitation from their children, afraid to fight back." "Then you should do it," he said, gently taking my hand. "I support you." The interview was scheduled for 3 days later. For the occasion, Donna specially made me a new cheaphouse-style dress, a navy blue silk with elegant white magnolia embroidery. "It's beautiful," she said, helping me put my hair up in a bun. "You'll look great on camera." Arthur drove me to the television station. On the way, he kept reminding me not to be nervous, to just tell the truth. "I'll be there with you," he said, parking the car and turning to me. "If the questions get too personal, you can always refuse to answer." The studio was smaller than I had imagined, but the lights were blinding. The host was a kind, middle-aged woman who chatted with me before the show to ease my nerves. "Mrs. 23. Eleanor, your article resonated with so many readers," she said with a smile as the recording began. "Could you share your story with us?" At first, my voice trembled, but as I started talking about discovering the joy of crafting and meeting like-minded friends, I gradually became more fluent. "What hurt me the most was my son's attitude," I said, my voice catching. "I gave him everything, and he—" "What do you think is the cause of this phenomenon?" the host asked. "Our generation thinks too much about our children, to the point where they feel entitled," I said, wiping away a tear. "The elderly are people too. We also need to be respected and have our own lives." After the recording, the host held my hand and said, "Mrs. Eleanor, you've spoken for so many people. This show will definitely generate a lot of discussion after it airs." Walking out of the studio, Arthur immediately came up to me. "You did great. You were sincere and poised." "I think I said too much," I worried belatedly. "If Kevin and his family see it?" "You had to face it sooner or later," he comforted me. "Come on, I'll treat you to hot pot to celebrate." That was the first time I had ever had hot pot. The spicy tripe and beef throat, pulled from the bubbling red oil, made me gasp for air, but I couldn't stop eating. Arthur laughed and poured me plum juice, telling me stories of his youth when he went to Sichuan for landscape painting. When I got home, I was already starting to call the shop home. I found Donna excitedly waiting for us. "Eleanor, the online store is blowing up," she said, holding up her phone. "The TV station ran a promo for your interview, and someone recognized our shop. We've gotten over 30 new orders in just a few hours." The following days felt like a dream. After the show aired, our handicraft shop became famous overnight. Orders poured in. The media vied to report the story of the 60-year-old grandmother who bravely fought back against domestic abuse. A publisher even contacted me about writing a book. But what surprised me the most was that on the third day after the show aired, Kevin came. That afternoon, I was teaching a few senior students simple embroidery when the doorbell rang. I looked up to see Kevin standing at the door, unshaven, his eyes red and swollen. "Mom," his voice was hoarse, "can we talk?" I had Donna continue the class and took him to the small back room. We sat facing each other in the cramped space, silent for a moment. "Brenda saw the show," he finally said. "She's furious." "I know," I said calmly. "Are you here to condemn me?" "No," he shook his head vehemently. "Mom, I came to apologize." Tears rolled down his cheeks. "After watching the show, I finally realized how terrible I was to you." I watched him silently, unsure if this was genuine remorse or another performance. "Brenda. She's too controlling," he said, painfully running his hands through his hair. "I was too weak. I always gave in to her. But I really do love you, Mom." "Kevin." I took a deep breath. "I love you too. But love isn't about endless sacrifice and demands. It's about mutual respect." "I know it's too late to say this now," he sobbed. "You're famous. You're making money. You don't need us anymore." "Kevin," I cut him off sternly. "Do you think I did all this for money? For revenge?" I pointed around the tiny room. "Look at where I live. It's smaller than your sunroom. But I sleep soundly here, because no one calls me a useless old hag, and no one goes through my wallet." He lowered his head in shame. After a long while, he said, "Leo misses you. Can I bring him to see you sometimes?" "Of course," my tone softened. "He'll always be my grandson." After Kevin left, I sat at my sewing machine in a daze, until Donna came in to call me for dinner. "Do you think he's really sorry?" she asked doubtfully. "I don't know," I shook my head. "But at least it's a start." That evening, I received a call from the television station. The show had been a huge success, and many viewers were demanding a follow-up story. At the same time, the interview with Silver Threads magazine was published, with a photo of me in my new dress, working at the shop. Arthur bought 20 copies of the magazine and distributed them to our friends at the senior center. Sharon held up the magazine and said excitedly, "Eleanor, you've become our spokesperson. Let's see who dares to bully the elderly now." Fame brought not only orders but also unexpected trouble. One afternoon, while I was being interviewed by a social media channel, Brenda stormed in. "Eleanor," she shrieked, "you have the nerve to sit here and play the victim?" She was waving a copy of the magazine. "What do you mean, abused by my daughter-in-law? Did I abuse you?" The reporter immediately turned the camera on her, which only enraged Brenda more. She lunged for the camera, and the scene descended into chaos. "Ma'am, please calm down," the reporter said, backing away with the equipment. "Calm down?" Brenda laughed hysterically. "She makes up stories to ruin my reputation, and you want me to calm down?" She turned to me, her eyes spitting fire. "You're good, aren't you? Playing the victim. Everyone, look at her. She's eating well, living well, and she's even got a sugar daddy." "That's enough." Arthur's voice, though not loud, was full of authority. He had appeared at the door. "Please leave, or I'm calling the police." "Oh, the sugar daddy speaks up?" Brenda sneered. "Eleanor, at your age, have you no shame?" I stood there, trembling, but not from fear. It was from anger. All those years of silent endurance had led to this public humiliation. "Brenda," my voice was surprisingly calm, "are you done?" She was taken aback, not expecting me to fight back. "I'm 61 years old. I've worked like a horse for your family for years and never gotten a word of thanks," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "Now, I just want to live a quiet life, do something I enjoy." "Is that so difficult?" You're just putting on an act." Her bravado was clearly fading. "You just think we're poor and don't want to help us out." "You're right. I don't want to help anymore," I admitted frankly. "I have the right to control my own money and my own time. If you still see me as a human being, please leave. If you insist on making a scene, we can settle this in court. Let a judge decide who has wronged whom over the years." Brenda was stunned into silence by my words. Arthur took the opportunity to open the door. "Please." She shot us a venomous glare, spat out, "You'll regret this," and slammed the door behind her. The reporter looked at me apologetically. "Mrs. Eleanor, should we edit this part out?" "No," I said, straightening my collar. "Let everyone see the truth." This incident, ironically, made our story even more popular. After the segment aired, I received countless letters and calls from other seniors, sharing their similar experiences. To my surprise, the local Women's Federation and the Commission on Aging also contacted me, inviting me to participate in a symposium on the protection of elderly rights. "Mrs. Eleanor, you've become a phenomenon," Arthur said with a smile. "Are you ready to be an opinion leader?" I shook my head. I just told the truth. But telling the truth came at a heavy price. Kevin never came again, and I didn't get to see Leo. In the dead of night, I would often think of my grandson's soft little hands and his sweet grandma, and my heart would ache. "Give him time," Arthur comforted me. "Blood is thicker than water." To distract myself, I poured all my energy into running the handicraft shop. We expanded our business, hiring 2 retired women to help with bulk orders. Arthur designed a brand logo for us, 2 hands, holding a heart under a golden setting Sunday. "Sunset glow refers to your age, but it also symbolizes beauty," he explained. Looking at the design, Donna's eyes suddenly reddened. "I never thought, at our age, we could have such a wonderful business." No, who would have thought? At 61, I had not only regained my dignity, but had also found a career, and I secretly glanced at Arthur, who was organizing orders, a sweet feeling fluttering in my heart. The symposium was scheduled for a Sunday morning at the convention center. I made a new jacket for the occasion, a dark red mandarin collar top with black trousers, elegant and professional. "You look great," Donna said, helping me with my hair and handing me a pair of pearl earrings. "These will make you look even more distinguished." Arthur drove us to the venue. On the way, he handed me a small, exquisite gift box. "This is for you. Open it." Inside was a fountain pen with an ebony barrel, heavy and substantial. "I heard you'll be speaking at the symposium." "I thought you could use it," he explained, a little embarrassed. "It's nothing expensive. It's beautiful." "Thank you," I said, stroking the smooth barrel, my heart warm. It had been years since anyone had given me a gift. The last time was a plastic barrette Kevin bought with his allowance when he was in elementary school. A crowd had already gathered at the entrance of the convention center. When they saw us get out of the car, a staff member immediately came over. "Mrs. Eleanor, please come with me. The director would like to speak with you first." I was led to a lounge where a short, friendly, middle-aged woman shook my hand warmly. "Mrs. Eleanor, it's an honor to meet you. I'm Director Lee from the Commission on Aging. We've read your articles and seen your interviews. We were very moved." She explained the agenda for the day and hoped I would focus on how seniors can protect their rights. "So many elderly people are like you, giving everything for their children, only to be disrespected in their later years." Director Lee sighed. "We need role models like you." The conference hall could seat 200 people and was already full when I arrived. There were not only seniors but also many younger faces, likely from the media or research institutions. After a brief introduction by the host, several experts spoke about policies and laws. When it was my turn, my palms were sweaty. I took a deep breath and walked to the podium. "I'm not an expert, just an ordinary old woman," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "Today, I just want to tell my story." As I spoke, I gradually relaxed. The audience laughed good-naturedly when I talked about discovering the joy of crafting. Many of the elderly people wiped away tears when I described being verbally abused by my daughter-in-law while my son stood by. "Our generation always feels that it's our duty to sacrifice for our children," I concluded, "but any relationship should be mutual. Love is not unconditional sacrifice. It's mutual respect and mutual fulfillment." The applause was long and loud. During the Q&A session, a young reporter stood up. "Mrs. Eleanor, what is your relationship with your son like now?" The question was like a knife to my heart. I gripped the pen Arthur had given me, trying to remain calm. "We need time. Do you hate him?" The reporter pressed. "No," I shook my head. "I understand his difficulties, but I will not compromise my principles because of them. Family ties should not be a tool for emotional blackmail." After the symposium, many elderly people surrounded me, telling me their stories. A white-haired old woman held my hand, sobbing uncontrollably. "My situation is much worse than yours. My son sold my house and now makes me live on the balcony." Director Lee, seeing this, immediately promised to follow up on these cases. "Mrs. Eleanor, would you be willing to be our special consultant? To help more seniors like you?" I readily agreed. If my experience could help others, I would be more than happy to do so. On the car ride back, Donna excitedly recounted the events of the day, but I was tired and just stared out the window. "Tired?" Arthur asked, looking at me through the rearview mirror. "I'll take you straight home to rest." "No, there are still orders to finish at the shop," I forced a smile. He insisted on taking me home first and even picked up lunch from a nearby restaurant. Donna tactfully said she had to go to the post office, leaving us alone. "Have some soup," Arthur said, handing me a bowl of pork rib soup. "You did a great job today." "Thank you for the pen," I said, sipping the hot soup. It gave me strength. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a bright patch of light on the floor between us. We ate our lunch in comfortable silence, the atmosphere warm and natural. "Eleanor?" He suddenly put down his chopsticks, hesitating. "Yes?" I looked up at him and noticed his ears were red. I've wanted to say something to you for a long time," he took a deep breath. "Since we've known each other, I've come to admire you more and more. Not just for your strength, but for your kindness and your talent." My heart began to beat faster, my fingers unconsciously twisting the corner of my napkin. "I know this might not be the right time." His voice grew quieter. "But life is short, and we don't have much time to waste." "Arthur. Call me Arthur," he smiled. "My parents gave me that name. I've spent my whole life building up other people's families." He chuckled self-deprecatingly. "Now, I want to live for myself, for once." I looked into his gentle eyes, which were filled with sincerity and hope. It had been so many years since someone had looked at me like that, not because I was someone's mother or mother-in-law, but because of who I was. Arthur, I said his name softly. It felt both strange and familiar. I need time. Of course, he said immediately. Take all the time you need. We have plenty of time. But did we really have plenty of time? I was 61, he was 65. Life was already on a countdown. Love at this age was like a sunset, warm but fleeting. After Donna returned, we naturally fell back into our usual way of interacting. But whenever our eyes met, I could see that special emotion in his, which made me feel both happy and anxious. That night, I tossed and turned in bed. On one hand, the feeling of being genuinely loved was wonderful. On the other hand, I worried it would affect our fledgling business, and, even more, what Kevin and Brenda would say. They would surely use it as ammunition against me. The next morning, I received a call from the Women's Federation, inviting me to participate in an anti-domestic violence campaign. Just as I hung up, the phone rang again. It was an unknown number. "Excuse me, is this Mrs. Eleanor?" a male voice asked. "I'm a reporter from Family Magazine. I'd like to schedule an interview with you." The following days, invitations and orders came in one after another. Our handicraft shop had to expand, renting the vacant storefront next door. Arthur, I called him. Arthur in private now helped me design new display shelves and work tables, and even taught me how to use a computer to manage orders. "Business is booming, boss," Donna teased as we were packing a shipment for Shanghai. "Don't make fun of me," I said, blushing as I went over the accounts. "Our net income this month is over $8,000. Divided by 3, that's $2,700 each. $2,700, Donna exclaimed. "That's more than my pension." "Yes, who would have thought?" A few months ago, I was a useless old woman who couldn't even afford a new camisole, and now I had my own business and income. And even more unexpectedly, I had found love in my later years. Arthur had been coming over more frequently, not just to help with the business, but also bringing small gifts, a potted plant, an art book, even a box of chocolates. Donna, seeing this, would always find an excuse to leave us alone. "Eleanor, there's an art exhibition this weekend. Are you interested?" he asked one afternoon, handing me a beautifully printed invitation. I don't know much about art," I hesitated. "It's okay. I'll be with you," he said softly. "Think of it as a relaxing outing." That weekend, I wore the navy blue dress, the pearl earrings, and even put on a little lipstick. When Arthur saw me, his eyes lit up. "You look beautiful." The exhibition, titled The Splendor of Life, was at the City Art Museum and featured works by many senior artists. In front of a watercolor painting called Twilight, Arthur stopped. "Look, it's just like us," he said, pointing to the two white-haired figures sitting side by side, with a magnificent sunset in the distance. A warmth spread through my heart, and I quietly took his hand. His hand was large, warm, and dry, reminding me of my husband's hand from many years ago. But Arthur was different from Kevin's father. He was gentle, knowledgeable, and appreciated my worth. "Eleanor," he turned to me, his eyes full of tenderness. "I know you have your reservations, but life is short. Why can't we?" "I'm scared," I said in a low voice. "I'm scared of the gossip, of how it will affect the children, and I'm scared of being hurt again." "I understand," he said, gently hugging me. "I'm not rushing you. I'll wait." Leaving the art museum, the sun was setting. We walked along the river. He told me stories of his time at the art college, and I shared my memories of the textile mill, as if we were trying to make up for the decades we had missed. "My first wife passed away 10 years ago," he said suddenly. "My son settled abroad and rarely contacts me. Before I met you, I thought this was how my life would be." I leaned my head on his shoulder, silent. The wind blew through my white hair, tangling it with his, glowing golden in the sunset. On the way home, my phone rang. It was Kevin. "Mom," his voice was hoarse. "Can we meet? Just the two of us." I covered the receiver and looked at Arthur. He nodded understandingly. "Go. You two should talk." The next day at noon, I met Kevin at a quiet tea house. He had lost a lot of weight and had dark circles under his eyes. "Mom," he said, wringing his hands, not daring to look at me. I quit my job. What? I was shocked. Why? I couldn't take it anymore, he said with a bitter smile. Brenda has gotten worse, not just with you, but with me and Leo too. It turned out that after I became well known, Brenda's control over the family had intensified. She had taken Kevin's salary, checked his phone daily, and even badmouthed me in front of Leo. The day before yesterday, I found out she had secretly transferred our joint savings, Kevin said, holding his head in his hands. She said she was afraid I would end up like you. Mom, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Looking at my son's tormented face, my heart ached. But strangely, this time, I didn't immediately soften. I calmly asked, "What are you going to do now?" I want a divorce." He looked up, a determination in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. "But Leo, I'm afraid I won't get custody." "Talk to a lawyer," I said, taking his hand. "I support you." "Mom," he choked, "are you still willing to forgive me?" "Kevin," I took a deep breath. "I love you. I will always love you. But love isn't about enabling. It's about wanting you to be a better person." He collapsed onto my lap, sobbing like a lost child who had finally found his way home. I stroked his hair, remembering how he used to cry in my arms every time he fell as a little boy. "Mom," he looked up, his eyes tear-filled. Can I come and see you sometimes? Leo really misses you." "Of course," I said, wiping away his tears. "You're always welcome." After Kevin left, I sat in the tea house for a long time. The waitress refilled my cup 3 times. The sun was setting. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Arthur. "How did it go? Do you need me to pick you up?" I replied, "It went well. I'll go home by myself." Walking out of the tea house, the early summer breeze carried the scent of flowers. I suddenly had a strong urge to see Arthur, to tell him about my conversation with Kevin, to hug him. I took a cab straight to his place. It was the first time I had gone to his home on my own initiative. He was clearly surprised to see me when he opened the door. "Eleanor? What's wrong?" "Nothing," I smiled. "I just wanted to see you." He let me in, bustling about to make tea. I sat on the sofa, looking around the tidy bachelor pad. The bookshelves were filled with art books, a few ink-wash paintings hung on the walls, and an open book on Chinese art history lay on the coffee table. "Kevin is getting a divorce," I said suddenly. Arthur put down the teacup and sat down beside me. "Are you okay?" I nodded. He asked if he could come and see me sometimes. "That's a good thing," he said, gently taking my hand. "Family ties can't be broken." I turned to him and summoned my courage. "Arthur, about what you said last time." Don't rush," he interrupted gently. "I told you I would wait." "But I don't want to wait anymore," I said, looking directly into his eyes. "Life is short, isn't it?" His eyes lit up, as if stars had fallen into them. We looked at each other and smiled. In the twilight, 2 white-haired old people had found the most beautiful sunset of their lives. 6 months later, our Sunset Glow handicrafts moved into a proper storefront and was renamed the Golden Sunset Workshop. The name was Arthur's idea, and he designed the logo, 2 hands holding a heart, with a magnificent sunset in the background. The shop wasn't large, but it was bright and clean. The front was a display area and a small tea corner, and the back was the workshop. The second floor was converted into 2 small bedrooms. Donna and I lived there, finally free from our nomadic existence. On opening day, many guests came. There were classmates from the senior center, friends from the media, and even a few fans who had traveled from other cities after seeing my story. "Mrs. Eleanor, congratulations." Sharon came with a large bouquet of flowers. "The whole senior center is proud of you." To my greatest surprise, Kevin also came, holding Leo's hand. The boy had grown much taller and rushed into my arms the moment he saw me. "Grandma, I missed you so much." I held my grandson, tears streaming down my face. Kevin stood to the side, his eyes filled with gratitude and remorse. "Mom, the shop looks great," he said sincerely. "Daddy said Grandma is a big boss now," Leo said innocently. "I want to be like Grandma when I grow up." We all laughed. Kevin's divorce was finalized. Surprisingly, he had won custody of Leo. The judge, after learning about the situation, had deemed Brenda unfit to be the sole guardian. She moved back to her mother's, Kevin said in a low voice. She also quit her job. I heard she's not doing well emotionally. I patted my son's shoulder, not wanting to kick her when she was down. The past was the past. After the opening ceremony, Arthur quietly took my hand. Tired? Let's go upstairs and rest. We sat side by side on the second-floor balcony, watching the bustling crowd below. Donna was teaching a few other seniors how to make coasters. Kevin was showing Leo the different types of fabric. Laughter filled the air. It's like a dream, I said softly. 6 months ago, I was an old woman who couldn't even afford a new camisole. Arthur squeezed my hand. And now you're a successful businesswoman. I smiled and leaned my head on his shoulder. Yes, I had my own business, had reconciled with my family, and had found love. Although it had all come a bit late, it was because I had been through the darkness that I cherished the light even more. That night, after everyone had left, Arthur took a small box from his pocket. I was going to wait for your birthday in a few days to give you this, he said, shyly opening the box. Inside was a simple but elegant silver ring. I designed it myself. We can exchange it if you don't like it. I took the ring and examined it carefully under the light. 2 letters, G.A., were engraved on the side. Do you like it? He asked nervously. I didn't answer. I just slipped it onto my ring finger. It was a perfect fit. Does this mean you'll marry me? His eyes lit up. I nodded, but on one condition. What condition? We don't get a marriage certificate, I said seriously. Let's just be companions for the rest of our lives. Okay? He was taken aback for a moment, then he understood. Okay, whatever you want. We looked at each other and smiled. At our age, a piece of paper was no longer important. What mattered was companionship and understanding, and not being alone on the final journey of our lives. And so, at the age of 62, I began a new chapter in my life. The business at the handicraft shop flourished, and we even hired 2 laid-off female workers to help. Arthur came to the shop 3 days a week to help with customers and orders. The rest of the time, he continued to teach at the senior center. On weekends, we often took Leo to the park for picnics or to see exhibitions. The child's innocent smile gradually healed the wounds of the past. Brenda would occasionally call to curse at me, but the anger in her voice grew weaker over time, eventually turning into helpless complaints. Kevin said she was undergoing therapy and hoped she would one day find peace. As for Arthur and me, we maintained a semi-cohabiting relationship. He spent most of his time at the shop, but kept his own apartment. This perfect distance made our relationship both intimate and free. One afternoon, as I was teaching a few young mothers how to make baby dolls, a white-haired old woman timidly walked in. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Eleanor?" she asked cautiously. I saw you on TV and came to find you." I immediately put down my work and invited her to sit down for tea. The woman, Mrs. Wu, was 70 years old. Her son and his family lived in the house that was in her name, but had forced her to live on the balcony. I don't know what to do," she said, wiping away tears. I raised him with my own 2 hands. I took her trembling hand. "Mrs. Wu, don't be afraid. I'll take you to see Director Lee. The Commission on Aging will help you." After Mrs. Wu left, Donna said with emotion, "Eleanor, you're a celebrity now. So many elderly people are counting on you." I shook my head. "I'm not a celebrity. I've just been through it." Yes, my story had given many elderly people courage, letting them know that even after 60, you can start over, you can say no to injustice. That night, after closing the shop, Arthur was helping me tidy up the counter. I looked at his focused profile and suddenly thought of a question. "Arthur, do you have any regrets?" "Regret what?" he asked, not looking up from counting the change. "Regretting that you met me so late." He stopped what he was doing and looked up at me, his eyes full of tenderness. "No regrets. Meeting you at 60 was just when I had learned how to truly cherish someone." I smiled and leaned my head on his shoulder. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in magnificent shades of gold and red, just like our love, a late arrival, but all the more brilliant for it. That's just how life is. It's never too late to start. What's important is to live out your final years in the way you truly want.